Okay. So, where's my video? How's it going, Izzy?
Good.
Good. All right. So we'll just, I think it's probably going to take a few minutes for everyone to kind of land. So maybe we should just do a quick check-in. Might just change it to gallery view so I can see all you guys. So we've got 20 people. That's a really good number. It means we can have a good discussion. So what we're planning on doing is really doing some brainstorming initially, focused on education, communications and outreach. And then what we want to do is really dig into a couple of ideas into a bit more depth. So Izzy and I are going to be kind of facilitating the session and doing the kind of tech support stuff. So if you have any problems, get in touch with either of us. We will go into breakout rooms as well and try and have an opportunity to do small group work. And so it would be really awesome if you could be keeping notes on directly into the Trello, or just keeping notes yourself, so that in those small groups, when you come back, we're actually able to kind of hold on to the ideas that are going to be generated, the really important conversations that are going to be happening. Yeah, thank you, Izzy. Izzy's just loaded the Trello link in there. So if you go into Trello, you can see kind of along maybe 4 or 5 lists along is an educators, communicators and outreach session notes list. And we're going to go into the first little card there, which is brainstorm notes. Trying to get back to okay, I'm definitely going to have to turn my phone off so I don't get distracted. So yeah, let's just, I think, start by hearing from some people that we have in our midst that already do lots of really cool things around education and communications. I thought we could just you're all welcome to kind of chip in, but maybe we'll start with you, Reese. You contacted me yesterday. And so it would be really good if you can tell us about what you're doing, but also respond quite directly to the EO statement. If I just read out what that bit on education says on the EO statement, we've called it Educate Locally Everywhere. And we've said we have a proven track record of running networks of highly effective educators that are flexible, proactive and responsive to the education needs of our communities at local and regional levels. Now we need to lever those to deliver effective climate messaging and foster behaviours that contribute to a just transition to a low carbon future. If we do this, then we can work with grassroots and overcome the barriers to behaviour change that officials face. So if you're able to respond to that and tell us about your experience as well, that would be great.
I'd love to do that. That would be really good. I could do it with the aid of pictures as well, if that's useful, but it would take about 6 minutes or so. Is that a good way of doing it?
I don't think we've got enough time to go.
Right. Okay. Just a few words would be fine. I'll do it that way, which would be great.
That would be great because we want to go into smaller groups.
No problem at all. The approach that's taken by some of the environment centres already, and by quite a lot of local government funded groups, is a programme of information about behaviour change, with discussion groups meeting together to learn as a group in order to change their behaviours. And that approach has been tested out over quite a long period of time and has been developed by a charitable trust, which is called Sustainable Living Education Trust. The popular name for it at the moment is Future Living Skills, which I put up on the background behind my picture on here. The trust that runs that program has mainly been working with local government, and we're finding it increasingly frustrating working with local government because they're spending all their time making strategies and policies and not doing anything. And we're getting really annoyed about that. And the trustees last week at their meeting decided that they're going to cut themselves loose from being tied only to local government. And they're going to offer access to the programme to any NGO which is working on the same kaupapa. We're immediately putting that into effect, and we're making the offer to Environment Hubs Aotearoa, which we very happily extend to the Community Energy Network and to Zero Waste Network, to make our program and our support available to any of our NGO partners who want to work with us, because we think the task is big enough and important enough that we're not going to wait for local government to wake up. The result of that might be a lot more local government interest in the program, but that's not what's behind it. We just want to make sure that the work that's been invested over a large period of time in writing and developing our materials and getting them ready for use with the public, and we know the influence behavior, we know the influence motivation, we just love to share it more widely. So we're happy to share our program widely now, and we're going to offer an MOU, memorandum of understanding, if you like, between the trust that runs the program and any of the 3 networks, or all of the 3 networks, if they're interested to link with us. So that's what I wanted to bring to the meeting. The timing is excellent because our trustees finally decided that they couldn't wait for local government to act anymore.
Awesome. It's great. It is very timely. Maybe do you have a link or something that you could paste in the chat so people can check it out while we talk?
I'll do that. I think the best way of having a quick look at the program after this meeting, don't get distracted, is to have a look at the website and see what we're up to, and make contact with me. I'll put my email address in there. I'm very happy to correspond with anyone who wants to run with this idea.
Awesome. Does anyone, I really want this to be a conversation, so please just feel free to take off your mics and chip in. And yeah, does anyone want to respond to what Reese has said, or have any other ideas? Can I then ask Anna, if you're there, to come and talk a little bit about the work that you guys are doing at Go Eco?
Yeah, kia ora tātou, ko ena hau, kirikiri roa e noho ana. So I'm in Hamilton in Kirikiri Roa. Can you hear me okay? I have these funny earmuffs on because our house is really noisy at the moment with 3 teenagers at home studying, supposedly. Yeah, so I guess when I got asked to talk about education, I explained that a lot of our work is actually well, to just take it back a step, you may have heard Joe talk yesterday about diversity and about our strategic plan. So our strategic plan has 2 kind of key focuses. One of those is Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and the other is climate action. So all of our education is based on those 2, I guess, central I guess you could call them. And so our education stems from that. In terms of for our staff, we've actually undertaken, all of our staff have engaged in Te Tiriti education. We see ourselves as a tau iwi organisation. So yeah, that's I guess an identity that we're attempting to develop. And we've also welcomed our networks into that education with us. So our Te Tiriti education is based on some amazing networks nationally. There's this Tangata Tiriti, Tiriti People resources, and there's just so much out there on Te Tiriti. So that's a big focus for us. And then our general approach to education is collaborative. So we're a kind of a hub, Go Eco, in the Waikato, and so we work with community centres, and there's quite a number of those in Kirikiri Roa and throughout our region, to deliver education to collaboratively with those centres. So and there's a number of those kinds of focuses, one of which is food growing, and another is around housing and energy use, that sort of thing. So, but we definitely take a collaborative approach, and what we also call a kind of capacity building approach. So people who might want to actually do some education themselves, we work together and help to upskill people so that they can be the deliverers of that education, because there is just so much to do in that space, and we're a small NGO, so definitely that collaborative approach is important for us. Yeah, I think that's all that I really was going to say.
I have a question about that kind of, building the capacity for people to go and do the training themselves. Like what what's different about that versus like the Zero Waste Network, for example, runs, and Izzy is the project manager for our training project. What would we need to be doing to set up people who came through our training project to then also be able to go and deliver something similar themselves? Like, what is the focus that's needed to encourage that?
I guess for us, it's providing the resources. So anything that they need to actually run an education session with community. So it might be printed resources or access to technology, that sort of thing. And for our food growing, for example, it's sometimes just providing some of the simple stuff like recently we held a kumara growing workshop, so we just were able to source some compost and different resources that were needed for that for the person that was providing the education. So yeah, it's more of like we actually employ community organisers more than we employ educators, and so the organisers are more about facilitating and organising people to come together and upskilling the educators rather than actually providing the education ourselves, although we do a bit of both. So I think it's resource provision, and like our centre can be used, for example, by people. They can come in and organise a session there of their own accord with our support, and following some of the, using some of the resources that we've got. And Reese, I think we have run future living skills in Kirikiriroa. My colleague Tanya was very involved in doing that and did that collaboratively with the libraries, which actually worked really well.
Yes, and we're doing a lot of good work with libraries in other parts of the country too. So yes, very, very happy to work with GoEco. And since Hamilton City are not currently members of our programme, it doesn't stop us working together now.
No. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question. There's probably a bit of a blurry line between those two things, in that we do support others to do education. We also do run it ourselves from time to time as well. So, but in terms of capacity, if we're really going to be, reaching more people, it makes sense to do to upskill people and work together.
Yeah, awesome. That was perfect. I'm trying to take notes and facilitate, so excuse me while I look a little bit in that direction. Yes, Jocelyn.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jocelyn Papel-Takuinga. I'm an educator from Environment Canterbury, actually, but I'm kia ora, Reese. Good to see you on this as well. One of the things I just want to tautaku is that whole thing that you mentioned, Anna, about the collaborative thing and the exciting thing that's been happening in the formal education spaces. There's a lot more discussion around how we can support climate change education. One of the key things that's coming through is that schools can't do this alone. In fact, many teachers feel quite nervous about it. They see it as a controversial issue. Why, I don't know, but however, the support of being able to work with non-governmental organisations or TLAs like Environment Canterbury is really important. And one of the interesting and exciting things that's happening in Christchurch and will be coming online next year is the Climate Campus, which has been initiated by Vicky Buck. I don't know whether any of you have heard of it, but we've got all this land now. A few houses are being pulled down after the earthquake, and there's a spare school going next year, and so that's going to become the Climate Campus, where schools can go, students can go, children and young people, but they're not just learning from teachers. They'll be able to learn from and engage with local community organisations. And I certainly know I'm also on the board of our Enviro Hub in Christchurch, and that's one of the things that we're wanting to do is make sure that children and young people and teachers are seeing that this is an issue that's being taken seriously outside of school, and that the learning is not just about what makes climate change and the science behind it, but actually what it is that we do. And one of the most exciting things that's come out of the past 18 months with the rollout of the climate change curriculum documents, and one of my ex-colleagues has been the lead facilitator on that in a number of schools around Christchurch, is that the students say when they do a pre-test with them, and they're all nervous and worried climate change is causing them anxiety, by the time they've gone through the 6 to 10 week course, they then they come out of it feeling much more empowered, that they have a sense of agency, that they can make a difference, that there are opportunities, that there is hope. And I think that's the kind of thing that's really important for young people. We've got to offer them hope. And the key thing, that message that's come through, is that they loved engaging with their local communities, that it was an intergenerational thing. And I think that, to me, is a really important aspect of what we're doing here today, is that these are community organisations, non-governmental organisations, that are that can demonstrate to young people that this is taken seriously, and work with those schools. So that, I think this is a great kaupapa, and I'm really keen to share that with the education network of this discussion we're having today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. In respect to that climate change campus, or climate campus, do you know anything about how it came about?
The inimitable Vicky Buck. I don't know whether the ex-mayor of Christchurch, and she started she and a few others started our schools of special character, Al Taufiti, quite a few years ago, but now she's wanting more that takes it, looks at a specific issue. Yeah, so yeah, that's it, Vicky Buck. Yeah.
Awesome. Liam, I'm wondering if I can just get you to chip in here, because I think that you and Hannah do some really incredible education, and you do it in quite a different way from lots of other formal educators or anything like that. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on, I guess, the links between the different ways of doing education.
Yeah, sure. I think, well, I really want to talk what Jocelyn was saying about the empowerment, around education. I feel like that's so critical. We all do sort of practical, we support people with practical ways they can take steps, but really it's that kind of, that social empowerment that I feel is so critical, to make it feel like actually it is possible, we could take action on that. And yeah, and that's going to look different too. There's so many different communities. I guess one of our biggest learnings of, anyway, sorry, I'll just introduce myself. Kia ora, Liam from the Rubbish Trip, to Zero Waste Education. And me and my partner Hannah travelled all around Aotearoa for nearly 3 years, giving talks about how people can reduce waste. And one of our biggest learnings, I think, was that every community, people from all walks of life have a different kind of entry point into these issues, into climate change. And we also realized, we are who we are, and we appealed to certain people, and maybe people who were already somewhat on board, and so that meant we didn't reach certain people. And so I think we need that diversity of approach in education, reaching different people where they're at. And I feel like that the collaboration between our networks is less about the practical things people can do, but about, I don't know, aligning our messages and aligning our kaupapa, so that we can go out to our different communities who have different needs and whatever, and reach them in the different ways that we do. So whether that's in people's homes, or whether that's at schools, and whether that's working with local government, and whatever it is. So I think that the diversity is really important, but how we can, I feel like there's a real need for us to really align and get a really strong shared message that we go out to that diversity of communities with. That's just sort of one thought I had. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, what we needed to do, like the plan for the session was to come up with a whole bunch of ideas and then try and work on 2. So, or, you know, a couple just in more depth. What I have taken from the notes from you guys, from hearing you guys talk so far, is that we've got this offer in terms of the Future Living Skills program. And then there is also some stuff about an approach which is really, Anna, can you remind me what the second strategic PO was? I got the tutility. I didn't get the first one.
Oh, climate action.
Climate action, great.
Yeah.
So that felt like a bit more of a, a strategic choice. And I think that ties in kind of to what Liam was just saying there, in terms of alignment on kaupapa, but then he's also suggested kind of an alignment on message. So I guess I think it might be good to just, wondering if a poll makes sense, or if we can just go spend 10 minutes on each of those, unless anyone has any other ideas that need to be added to the mix. Okay, so what I'm going to do.
Sorry, I liked what Liam said about diversity and reaching people where they're at, and maybe that is linked to aligning messages, but I think there's more to it. So
do you want to talk more about that?
Just example, kia ora koutou, I'm from Kapaitiki Project, and what we've been doing is reaching people that we haven't really communicated in the past. We've just recently ran a workshop for refugees and new migrants to New Zealand. And the workshop was about restoration as well as how to grow your own food. But what we got out of it was actually quite beautiful, because people connected to the new land, to the new home. So they got much more out of it than just learning how to grow your food. And we had a lot of people from the workshop became our volunteers, and we even employed some. So ended up in employment because they had so much to offer from their own countries. So where I'm going with that is really diversify offerings, because in the past we've been working very closely with people who are already converted, if you like, who are our regular volunteers, and they say, yeah, you're doing great, and we think we're doing great because we only listen to this small cluster. So I think that's really resonated with me, the diversity and meeting people on their journey. Liam, do you see it?
Awesome. Okay, so Izzy, can you copy and paste the name of the idea description of how it works list? Do you have that? It's at least on the Trello. You might have to do it in bits and pieces. But yeah, so what I want to do now is just answer some of these questions. So if we say that the name of the idea is, maybe I'll add a new card.
Sorry, daughter, the ideas list where? Like
in
your notes?
Trello, educators, communicators, and outreach session notes. There's like a list of things that tasks that we're meant to do. Do you see that?
Like
top ideas, name of idea, description of how it works. Yeah. So if we just go through that for each suggestion. So the first one was kind of Reese, this might not, just chip in if I'm saying it wrong, but it's kind of making use of existing programs
and adapting them. I would stress that in the time we've been developing sustainable living education, we've seen a fantastic experiment underway. Every place is using the program differently. We allow and encourage that. So we mentioned earlier working through libraries. We've also had some superb work done back in Waitakere by Mandarin speakers who ran work for new migrants, adapting our program to use an English language skills program. I mean, that's how variable it's been. So what I was arguing for is not to reinvent. Let's try not to reinvent the material, but add to it richly. and build from it. Much the same as, for example, Liam and Hannah have done these excellent regional guides about minimizing waste in the local area where you live. We've acknowledged that, and we put links to it on our material on our website because we don't want to reinvent it. And that's the essence of working together. When we've got limited resources, we've got to be really imaginative. Ernest Rutherford said we don't have very much money, so we're going to have to think. And I think that was such a good point, that let's adapt. And this summer, we're putting quite a lot of time into adapting and improving the climate content of our material, make it much more explicit, because we're being asked to by the learners who are using the material. They want us to do that.
And they're accessible to school groups as well. So it's not just aimed at the adults. I think that's the power of the future living skills, that a number of schools have taken on board some of those things and actually use them. So
just to answer that question a bit more, it's aimed at, I just took from Jocelyn there, it's aimed at school groups, but it's also aimed at who? Who are we aiming this at?
I think we have to look at behavior change by the people who can make a difference when they change their behavior. This includes the early adopters, the leaders, the people who will make a change and then make it visible by what they're doing. They're the ones who tend to be newsworthy. They get coverage in the media and so on. They're opinion formers and shapers. The second group I'm really aware of are the people who've reached some moment in life when there's a change point happening in their life. For example, they've just become young parents and they're thinking about what the healthy food is for their young baby and how to look after their baby, or they're reaching another key point in life, and they're members of the public who want to learn how to change their behavior.
Great. Blanca, I'm wondering whether you agree, whether that's who this stuff needs to be aimed at, or taking on your point, is there other groups of people that aren't obvious?
I agree with Reese, because they can multiply the effect, especially the early adopters and influencers. But then there's another group that what I see through many, I'll try to explain it. We need to become an option. People are looking for to do something better, or to basically contribute, and they can contribute in many different ways. They can contribute in the environment, or helping children, or volunteer at school, and we actually compete with all of that. So I call it become an option.
Nice.
And sometimes it's even with we find with families and children, we are running a few programs where they come planting. So from parents' perspective, it's not that they're planting and the kids really want to plant and be in the bush. It's more like, how do I keep my kids busy? So again, we compete with all these things that we probably don't even think of that we compete. But once they're in, they get to know us, they know what they've contributed, and they become part of the whānau, really.
Nice.
So,
you've got your hand up.
What about the business? Like typical local business who could actually sell product, stuff like that? Because if for example, if you look down, we have to go to local market who may not necessarily sell the waste money, waste friendly kind of product. Like for example, if I want to buy bread, I have to buy bread that's already packed in plastic, isn't it?
So what experience do we have in the group around kind of targeting businesses? Was anyone working specifically with businesses? Yes.
Hey, so here in Whangarei, we run a program called EcoStar, which is funded by the Ministry for Environment, and we go into businesses and we audit them on their waste, and then we write waste minimisation plans with them, and then we do a support program with them, normally about a year long, and then we re-audit them, and into that waste plan, we also incorporate how they can reduce their carbon footprint, ideas about diversion strategies and how they can create behaviour change in the workplace. So that program's kind of been a pilot here in Northland. It's in the far north and in Whangarei. It's been going for about a year now.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
It's funded by the ministry, isn't it? Yeah, yes. Not operated as a social enterprise. Yeah.
So we are a social enterprise here at CBEC, but
okay.
The funding to pay for the program comes from the Ministry for Environment.
Yeah. That's great. And is the idea, do you reckon, scalable? Like, I mean, I actually know that there are conversations happening around this within the Zero Waste Network. But with today's focus on climate change, it's like, how scalable is it in terms of changing the lens slightly to be broader to climate action?
Yeah, I think it is, like the scope that they've given us for what we can do with businesses and the plan that we can give them and kind of the direction, because it's only a year long, it's still kind of in our hands to adapt how we want the plan to go. I mainly do the education with schools. It's my colleague that does the EcoStar, and she isn't here today, unfortunately. But I think it's good that it's been a pilot here and that we can change the scope to be more directed at climate change. And there's a lot of flexibility on how this can run in the future. We're just kind of beginning it here and seeing how we can make it work. And at the moment we've been in, so our KPI at the end of this year is to be in 400 businesses throughout Northland. We're a little bit shy of it at the moment, but it's just getting one business at a time. We're trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger and get into, you know, large scale companies that can also be throughout the entire nation. So if this sets up in another region, they can then correspond what we've already taught the business up here and bring it down to their other branches throughout the country.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. So if we were to do something together around leveraging off the amazing programs that are already happening and the resources out there, what are some questions about that? Like, how do we actually make that happen? What are the things that we still need to know? For example, I can think of, just some really logistical things about, or maybe a better example is IP. So how do we maintain good ideas and lots of organizations have developed really amazing resources, and what happens if we then make those open? Do we just assume that that's fine, or do people need to be resourced for giving away their IP? So some of those kinds of ideas. What are some of the key questions that we would have about actually how to make this happen?
One thing at our place we talked a lot about is IP versus open source, and we've decided we are all about open source. And I'm talking about how to share knowledge from our programs. Example of one is training the restoration leaders to be leaders so they can run restoration days and planting days themselves. So yeah.
And that sounded similar to you, Anna, in terms of the training the trainer stuff. So is there any more kind of depth to that? Like, why open source? And how did those conversations go?
Just to use an example of the Te Tiriti education that I mentioned before. So there's a lot of resources that have been developed nationally through a whole lot of work through various people, but they're all freely accessible, and that's what we've drawn on for our Te Tiriti based education. You have to go through another step or two to become I guess, I don't think they use the word certified, but there's some sort of level that you need to do to get to be a treaty educator, facilitator as part of this official network. But all the resources are there. And I think that's so important right now that we can make things freely available. We talk about urgency, and if we're going to hold on to stuff and not share, I think we're kind of, that's a problem, I think. But I mean, I understand people need to make an income and all of that, but actually, we're talking about climate action and climate urgency. So it seems vital to share. So in terms of sharing with the network all of the resources that we've used for our treaty education, we can certainly do that because it's been shared to us. So,
great.
I guess my comment on that would be I'm thinking of this in relation to our training program, is that if the training was more available online, we're not having to book in actual tutors for every session, then there's not as much money needing to go into it. So then we could make it more freely available because we're not needing so much return.
yeah, I do think it's a really big tension. And there is another aspect to it, which kind of Reece mentioned briefly around that kind of continual development. Like, how do you maintain good quality resources and programs and best practice when it's distributed widely? So what is the mechanism for keeping things current and best practice while also being really generous and getting it out really widely? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Reece?
Just a quick cover on that. One of the great things about this trust is it survives things like changes of government and changes of fashion, because it has a core group of member councils who pay a subscription. And that subscription income is enough to cover the basic costs of keeping things updated and developed and picking up new topics, like our new topic on the local economy that we nearly finished writing. So having that core of councils funding has given the opportunity to do updating, and that I think will continue. But now we're looking at how it can help fire a groundswell or grassroots or flax roots action in a way that it hasn't done up to now, when it's been rather too controlled by local government.
Right. And open. Sorry. Okay. So the next question was, going up to your thing, what is it beyond business as usual? What is it? Why the way it is beyond? Okay. Why would this be beyond business as usual? What is it about our sharing existing programs? It happens a bit, right? I just don't think we've been focused on making it happen. And I also think that it's difficult because so much of the materials are subject specific. So there's some amazing resources on waste that I know about, but
maybe it's even like just not even knowing what else is out there. Like not actually being aware of the other awesome stuff that's happening.
Yeah. And how could we get around that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like
can I say that that's certainly a big issue that we're having within the education network, is a lot of teachers going, oh, I don't know what's out there. And the more I'm coming into these kind of conversations, I'm realizing there's a heck of a lot out there. And so one of the things that we're trying to do nationally as a NZAE, the New Zealand Association for Environmental Education, is actually have an online portal, I suppose, where a teacher can go and go, I'm in Canterbury, I'm in Christchurch, I want to do something on waste education, and I'm tying it in with climate change. Oh gosh, there's this organisation I could go to. Or we don't have anything here in Christchurch, but look, there's some amazing stuff happening in Northland. Maybe I could work with my students about an action project that might bring something to Christchurch. So it's helping spread the ideas by having some kind of portal. So one of the things that we need to do in NZAE is make sure that some of the organisations that are represented here will also be on that portal, because you're not necessarily a formal education provider, but you are providing resources and expertise, I think, that teachers we want to bring into their classroom. So those kind of networks are really important.
And maybe it's a good time to plug the EHA map as well. Izzy, would you be able to find a link for that and chuck it in the chat? It's a new project, but it's a really amazing resource with huge potential. So and the back end's really cool. So I do think there are so many awesome things happening, and and then so many awesome portals as well. So it's like we need a mega portal or something like that to direct people to the very specific resource lists that are out there.
Yeah, we need some money for people to be facilitate, kind of the connectors between all these different groups. So, there's something new come up, I can put on my portal to link to your portal.
Yeah,
it's coming back to our resource library, daughter.
Yeah. Well, the Zero Waste Network has been aware that this should have happened a long time ago. So our new membership coordinator is actually working on a resource library. And the Zero Waste Network has always been, I think, quite good at being really generous with the knowledge, and there's some really great examples of that. But what I don't think that we're particularly good at is kind of coordinating it so that it's easy to access. It's still kind of coming back to a few central people and who have access to memories of times past and stuff like that. So that's a good comment, Nick. Do you want to speak to that?
Oh, maybe. I was just thinking, like EHA's already got funding to, and a person whose role is to curate data and make that maximize the potential of that mapping project. And from what Jen was saying yesterday, the potential of that Takiwā mapping software is just incredible. Let's not duplicate that anywhere else. Like, can we use that as that kind of central point, that through which all of these stories can go? Because already we've got the environment hubs mapped on there. We've also got the Zero Waste Network projects mapped on there. We've got the Community Energy Network projects mapped on there. So, hey, look, it's already all there. Let's add layers. Let's keep using that and build on that. It just looks to me like it should be really amazing. And then maybe that is that point at which people, any member of the public, access this, and they can access it through looking at the area that they're most interested in, maybe like geographically speaking, what's happening in my neighborhood, what's happening in my region, or it could be the topic that they're most interested in. Where can I find some support on growing food in my area? Where can I find out how to recycle, blah, 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 blah. But all of those layers are there. So if we can make that process as easy as possible for people to access, that seems to me like a great starting point.
I do too. Okay, I'm going to then take us to the different idea, and that's about our shared messaging. So starting with that list that Izzy put up earlier, the name of the idea, got it, description of how it works. How would that work? How would shared messaging work for you guys across different places? Like, what is everybody already using? What works, what doesn't? What would you need to make that happen?
I find the shared messaging is quite similar to having center of all the resources. But we would know how to make it local, because sometimes it is slightly different in different areas. But the things that come to my mind is decentralization, that there's been talk about in the morning by Tina, how even though we want to give it, I still sometimes find that, but it's our idea, so we hold on to it, or it's another network's, I can't really steal it, so we have to be very upfront how we manage that, so that we don't get into those waters. And another one that I think of is, the whole citizen science behind iNaturalist and how that's done. So not that we're going to collect citizen science, but how could we all collectively be building the resources, and concise messaging is just one of the layers of these resources, or, the messaging that it's consistent.
Sometimes, sorry.
No, go, Anna.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about, a bit broader about education. I think one of the things that Tina did raise was the issue of, she mentioned relationship. And sometimes I think that when we're in our busy jobs and organising, we don't realise the kind of education that might be required about just how to have good relationship and how to build good networks and kind of what that takes. And so sometimes I think, we're good at doing a waste resource or whatever it might be, how you grow this and that. But we don't actually talk about fundamental things like processes for good relationships. So I'd like to see that also included in, whatever we might be able to share through our networks is, what people have discovered. Around, because I talked about community organising, that's a big part of what we do at Go Eco. And what the skills involved in that are and how to really support each other with that. So it's more like a professional development type education, I think, as well is really important.
Yeah, great. Suzanne, do you want to speak to your comments?
Yeah. Hi. I just thought I'd share that what we use up here in Northland, mainly for schools and community groups, is a Facebook page, and it's got about 300 members in it. Most are teachers or community education providers, and we just share pretty much every day what we're doing. So if I go into a school and I provide a lesson or I provide a workshop, I try to share it in the page so that everyone knows what I'm doing, so that we don't double up on things. It's also a good place if someone's new to the area, they can just post and say, I'm new, I would like to know what's out there in the community. Can someone help me? People comment. So I just thought that if we could link the community groups between the map that you've already made, if someone could click, let's say on Northland, they click, I'm interested in this, it could redirect them to the Facebook group so that they have support and they could talk in it as often as they want. They can directly message people and find out what's happening. Just because it's hard to find those pages, I think. If you just search it up on Facebook, it doesn't always come up. So if there's a map that could redirect them directly, it might be quite helpful.
Yeah, I think social media is really interesting. There are some amazing forums out there, and I think we have a few kind of zero waste groups and things, but when we've got really busy people, they all spread around the world, country. They aren't especially good at sharing kind of national issue stuff. I feel like the local groups are way more successful. And so I wonder if there is a way of what you're suggesting, Suzanne, is like making a link between what is happening in those successful local forums and the knowledge that is spread all around the country. It's an interesting dilemma. Liam, do you have anything to offer on that? Because I know that you guys actually have an amazing community that would be spread kind of possibly internationally. He's just disappeared.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having internet issues. I'm not sure if I really have much to add on that.
Yeah. Is it just about time spent or something? I don't know how you make that stuff work well. We've certainly had much more engagement since we hired Val to do our comms, and she's like a dedicated person. It really made a huge difference. So Nick, you've changed from a clap to a hand up.
Yeah, sorry, it was meant to be a hand up. I didn't realize it was a clap. My comment was sort of in relation to social media in terms of like Facebook for sharing resources. I'm actually not so familiar with Facebook these days, but if you're posting material on there, is it easy to locate stuff that's been posted in the past? Was my specific question, or does it just become somewhere where you throw stuff on there and then it kind of disappears into this extensive ongoing,
It's a bit like adding to space junk, Nick. Once it's posted, it may be read by a few people and then it disappears. It's extremely hard to get it back as well.
Yeah, right. So from an information management perspective, how do you make sure that material is easily available to whoever wants to find it?
I just answered kind of in the chat, but I think it'd be if we could have a platform that can archive things better, it would be good. The only function that like what I find handy in the Facebook group is if I want to know about a specific topic, let's say a composting workshop, you can search that into the group bar, and any posts or any comments that had that keyword will highlight and come up, and you can just search through them. So it only works if you know exactly what you're looking for, I think, or kind of a vague topic. You can search that up and try to find all the links. But it doesn't necessarily archive things in a way. You don't really have a library of topics that have been discussed. So if there's a platform that does that better, then it might be more useful.
Yeah. So and a further question then I guess I have for this group, and it's probably a big picture thing, is do any of our organizations or networks specifically employ information management professionals who could you know, because it's quite a specific process to go through to actually manage information. And is there anybody who could be called upon who could fill that role in professional capacity, who has the skills and experience to bring that information together in one place and make it, you know, make it as accessible as possible?
Well, Des, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying that would be amazing if we could find that person.
Okay, well, interestingly, Val is a librarian, our comms person,
Yeah,
and she's just kind of pointed out that our once small organisation is no longer small, and it really needs an approach to information management. And I think EHA have Jen as well. So I do wonder if it's a something that the networks could do as a collaborative project, and then, you know, as a pilot, and then potentially like take it out further or something like that. Yeah, it's a good suggestion. This is all really, really valuable stuff. We've got 2 more minutes before we've got an hour off for lunch. Does anyone have anything they desperately need to say?
Another thought just on the sharing resources would, it would be awesome to have like a collective calendar as well, like to see what else is happening throughout the networks all over the country. You could maybe like zoom into just particular areas in your area to see what's happening. But yeah, even like down to like when other people's newsletters are going out. So like you can then like tap into each other's networks, because sometimes I find like when I've got a training event coming up, I'm like furiously like trying to get it out. But like if we shared each other's social media networks or even newsletter networks, then it would be so easy to just get the information out.
Yeah, awesome. Does anyone else suffer from the same thing that Izzy does? Blanca, we've been talking about improving our event calendar, and we love the Kaipariki event calendar. So we're going to use you guys as our model.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It really works. We've put it in place 2 years ago, and it basically we trained or retrained our database or our volunteers and our community to look at that, and it really works for us because people know where to go and it's all together. But having we even dream about having calendar for the whole north of Auckland, you know, not just our Kaipariki project, but there are quite a few very great groups close to us, and if we had the same calendar as well, shared calendar, that'd be amazing. So I'm all for it.
Awesome.
I think Dunedin Council have like a collective calendar that you can submit an event that's happening, and then they just approve it, and then everything and anything is like listed on their calendar, which was pretty cool.
Yeah great.
Seems to me like that maybe that mapping project also has the capacity to include, you know, that kind of temporal mapping as well.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
That happening as well.
Yeah Jen's gonna be busy, which is great.
Well,
I'd love to have her on our team as well.
Well, and you know, maybe there's a case to put more resource into that to support across all the networks.
Yeah I definitely think there is. Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to hold you here any longer. Go and have an hour off Zoom, and please come back to the link we used for the earlier sessions at, I think it's 1:30. So we'll just kind of do a little bit of feedback from these sessions, and
Thank you,
Thanks for
Dora.
that.
Lots of things
Kia
to think
ora.
about.
Thank you,
Kia ora.
Dr.
great.
Thank
See ya.
Kia ora,
Thank you. Kia ora.
You can just end the thing, Izzy, and then send me the video. Oh, I'd put the video up.